Yeah, another thing about St. John's Wort that was really interesting. I was just taking a class with Austin Kopic, and he's been studying a lot more Vedic astrology. And I don't know who his teacher is, but he mentioned having a teacher, and he said he had a dream right around St. John's Eve. It might have even been like the day before, where he dreamed about John the Baptist beheaded, and Rahu. And the North Node, the serpent's head, and also the Hellenistic, like pre-Hellenistic, Egyptian, like the PGM era, sort of deity, entity, spirit, the headless one, and then presented that, who is always like equated with Osiris in the sky, like the dismembered Osiris, the dismembered universe, and with Orion. Like if you look at Orion, it's like that constellation could clearly look like someone with no head, And he presented it to his teacher, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's all Rahu stuff," Wow. And he was talking about performing the headless rite as Rahu remediation.
Wow.
And I thought that was really amazing. So that's definitely that's the headless rite's already a regular part of my practice, but it's to go through another cycle for this eclipse coming up, and that's can be something that the people, it's often like one of the pathways to conversation with the holy guardian angel, as they call it, or like the higher self, the personal daemon, but since it's headless, and since Saint John was beheaded, and Rahu is just like a hungry, out of control head, there's sort of like these antidotes, right? Rahu is like a ever hungry beheaded head, because it's always hungry, because it doesn't have a body, so it can't get full, so it just wants to eat and eat. And the headless one and Saint John can take their heads off, or like don't have a head, so I don't know, it's really interesting to think about.
It's like Chinnamasta too.
Yeah, totally. No, that was actually his dream. It wasn't.
Oh, whoa.
It was Chinnamasta, John the Baptist, and the headless one. And he told his teacher, and his teacher was like, "Oh yeah, that's all Rahu stuff."
Oh, amazing.
So yeah, that's good call with Chinnamasta. That's totally.
Well, that beautiful hex that Stefan painted for us.
Yeah.
Chinnamasta.
But for anyone out there who's doing PGM stuff, that's like something to start trying out, because there's a Rahu eclipse, there's a North Node eclipse twice a year, so you can definitely start applying headless rite to that. And then in the Vedic tradition, they talk about calamus root, commonly for Rahu as well, to calm hunger. And it's interesting because if you take too much, it induces vomiting, And that's like that axis, the polarity of Rahu and Ketu. Ketu, who's like purges. Like if you take too much, like it calms the hunger. So it's like Rahu being like, oh, you're overly hungry, so this will make you not so hungry. But if you take too much, you become Ketu,
Yeah.
And the Chippewa would, they knew this, and they would, I don't know if they thought about it as far as eclipses, but they knew that it would make you vomit if you took too much. And the way they would measure out a dosage was by, you would get, like a patient would get the amount of root that was the length of their index finger. So it's like an interesting way of like sizing it to the body.
It was definitely a favorite of Maurice Messuget, and he was all about baths. He never ever like said anything, gave anything internally. It was always all baths. And Calamus, he even said that Calamus, like, he was nervous about giving internally. And so through the baths, like, was able to heal people. Did you ever read up People and Plants?
No. I want to read that.
You will love it.
Well, Calamus, like, loves flowing water. It almost needs to grow in muck and have water flowing over it all the time. So it's kind of perfect for the bath,
I think he was talking about putting unruly children who won't go to sleep just in a bath of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not forcing them in it. I'm not like talking anything crazy, but giving them a bath of that and kind of relaxing them and making them
It's a great idea.
ready to go to sleep.
It is commonly in bitters lists with Angelica as well, so they often get paired. Calendula is another one. It's solar, but aside from being solar, is often attributed to Freya, and commonly reported, especially in the Middle Ages, that young maidens, you know, like it's like an example of people taking it upon themselves to do love magic, you know, with calendula, you know, so...
it also keeps away nightmares if you put it under your mattress.
Oh, really?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have some notes later about putting things under your mattress and pillow. We can throw some calendula in there too. But yeah, they talk about salves made out of it with goat lard for inflamed nipples, like also with burns and bruises and cuts. But I just thought that it's like in the same breath of being like, and maidens would use it for like love magic with Freya, you know, and it was like and it's goat lard, like an animal that gets milked, you know, so you get this like kind of intersection.
And gets wild,
so
like that smell of the male goat.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You get this intersection of like milking and like inflamed nipples and love magic and Freya and fertility and like, so I don't know. That's like kind of you always see like the solar stuff with calendula, but then it's this other attributed to goddesses. Okay, so I think we get right on to putting stuff under your pillow. So August 12th, the sun into the third decan of Leo, and then where you start talking about motherwort, and then we talk about motherwort again later. And then on August 15th, brings us closer to the Saturn and Capricorn Uranus trine, and sees Jupiter and Scorpio nearing the trine with Neptune and Pisces. And that's where you start bringing in the mugwort, the Artemisia vulgaris, and to help us to incorporate the underworld imaginings and creativity with our solid yet dynamic foundation. And so this is where we start thinking about taking mugwort and other dream charms in general, and calling upon dream guides and sleeping with herbs and charms under our pillows and under our mattress and hanging around our bed. And so it's cool because Saturn's involved in that trine with Uranus as well. So it's that the discipline of journaling, of your dream journal being involved. Saturn is an ally of that routine. Well, like Neptune and Pisces and Jupiter trining are just like bringing in the dreams and the fantasies themselves. And then Uranus also is interesting there, trine with Saturn, as like interruption of sleep is typically something that increases dream recall and lucidity. Like I guess Gordon White, I heard him saying recently that Leonardo da Vinci was really into dream recall and trying to be a lucid dreamer. And I don't know if he used servants or what, because there wasn't alarm clocks necessarily, but would just be woken up all the time, so that he was always like bringing those dreams to his forward mind. You know, like when you have those, when you go back to sleep in the morning, or you take like a 20-minute nap, but you have like a 5-hour dream in like in like 5 minutes, you know, like that you can, and Gordon was talking about, you know, in the Egyptian world, and they're real masters of the imaginal realm and the dream realm. Like in the PGMs, you see a lot of like dreams. A lot of the spells are dream sending, and like, you know, sending someone a dream, or showing up in someone's dream, or sending a vision of a god. Like if you can send Hermanubis to someone, so in their dream, Hermanubis tells them to do something, tells them to sell such and such thing to such and such person, and they wake up and they're like, oh my god, like literally, oh my god, Hermanubis told me to like to do this, and then they do it, and the spell is, your will is accomplished. But anyway, that a lot of that focus on the imaginal world and dream sending, he was theorizing is that we know, like historically and anthropologically, that they slept in rooms with multiple people, and that whenever you sleep in a room with a lot of people, you're waking each other up constantly, and that you're just like having more of that, like waking up, remembering your dream, falling back asleep, waking up, like you're, you know, bringing that dream to the forward of your mind. And so that Uranus involved there, like as like your sleep interrupter with Saturn, is like your dream rememberer, dream discipline journal routine guy, and then the heavy dreams of Jupiter and Neptune. And so, but yeah, mugwort.
Classic.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Classic. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Just ally for the other realm. Also pain relieving too, anodyne. Yeah, mugwort's incredible. Like right now is in my garden, like I don't know, 10 feet tall in some places. Incredible mugworts. It's all over, coming up in cracks in the cities.
It's incredible. It just comes up in the most disgusting places.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a beautiful,
gorgeous,
stately herb, and it gets so high and so huge, and it really is the victory of nature over industrialization, or just in my mind, a personification of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love how it has like that silver underneath the leaf, like so it's like that other realm, like it's like the two realms, like the dark color, it's like presenting one face,
it's like it's
riches, the other side, the silver
leaves.
side, and you can see it when the wind blows it up, you know.
Even wormwood like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, a lot of the
like,
artemisias,
like when you how the flowers are hidden, and then if you look at it in the right way, you can see all these little yellow flowers. It's incredible.
Gorgeous. It's so soporific, like that. The pain relieving qualities, making an infused oil with it, just also will just enhance just bring you to a place of relaxation, or just taking you out of the everyday.
So for city dwellers, can you just take the mugwort that you see? I guess you can use it for burning, but would you probably not suggest ingesting it, or does it?
Sometimes if I live in a city, I'm like, okay, I live here. I'm ingesting the herbs that grow here, and ingesting the plant. Like I often have a garden, so I'm like, I'm eating the herbs that are constantly having pollution pouring on them.
Yeah.
Because I'm living there, and I'm just immersing myself in that realm. But if I was going to choose, I would probably go to the country and harvest. But if that's what I had, then I would use that.
Yeah. Well, I
and
think
you said specifically, like, if you live there, then take part in it, because it is part of, it's like you're sharing this.
Yeah.
I think it's, if you want the materia of the place too, like
Yeah.
we pull mugwort from the wharf, from the pub, you know, like to get that like bay wharf, like kind of pub, like you know, that kind of axes of activity, that like wet alcohol celebration, port, salt.
Yeah.
And then you get a lot of different stuff going on there. The boats coming in and out. You get like a nodia. You get like you get a lot of different, like especially female kind of spirits, like kind of expressing. But that's not what we make tea with, you know. But you can use it for powders. You can use it for amulets. You can certainly just put it under your pillow.
Yeah,
you know?
hang it over your bed.
Yeah. My favorite attribute of mugwort that, like, now I can't remember where it's from, but is that it makes you dream in Technicolor.
Wild.
And it's just like...
That actually is really crazy, because mugwort is attributed to Sirius, which is like that is like a prismatic flashing star of like many colors, you know, and that Agrippa attributes mugwort to Sirius as well as juniper and dragon's wort, and that you would engrave upon a barrel. This is from like the Liber Sacrar, like the like hermetic, you know, something that fed into the earlier grimoires. You see this kind of trace of it in the Testament of Solomon, that like you would take a stone and you'd engrave upon it an image, and then you'd make a ring with a certain kind of metal that corresponds to a planet, and it was all very Deccan based, and you'd put the herb underneath the stone, and then you'd set the stone on it, so the herb was trapped in the stone.
Wow.
Yes.
And then what later became the magical circle that you would do evocation within was completed by the circle that the stone would be set in the ring in the Hermetic era. And so that would be the whole ritual. So it was like Aphrodite was very commonly, like Venus and Aphrodite was attributed to Sothis, which was like the earlier Egyptian name for Sirius. But that's really interesting about the Technicolor. And then, so in the Grimorium Verum, you get it attributed to Astaroth, who's, obviously derives from like Astarte, Ashtera, like Ishtar, and then her deputy Neburos, who's etymologically related to Cerberus, and their Neburos is like very heavily associated with divination and kind of like journeying style. At least that's the way I conceptualize of it. Like, and I get a lot of that, like with Astaroth, a lot of that like multicolor stellar, because she's like, astral, Astarte, like that's like kind of stellar scape, but really rooted into that Sirius. And Sothis is like, used to be 0 degrees Cancer, now has migrated like almost to like 12 degrees. And we just had I think I want to say like a couple weeks ago, just had the heliacal rising of Sirius.
Wow.
So it is like very much right now, like we're just starting to get that brush of that star back along the like perimeter of the stars that we can see, because that used to be the Sirius rising was like the beginning of the whole cycle of the seasons in Egypt, as they wouldn't think of it as Aries ingress for like the beginning of the astrological year. Right. It was like 0 degrees Cancer, because that's when the Nile would flood, when Sirius would rise, and that's when all the seasons would begin, But yeah, definitely like mugwort in more ways than one right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the sneaky one, because you're like, oh, the eclipse is big, like these astrological things that are big, and this is kind of, like the trine of Neptune and Jupiter makes us think mugwort, and that works well with like the grand trine, but then you're like, wait, no, mugwort, big one right now, definitely get it on, collect, like, and like we were saying earlier, now's the time to collect herbs to bless them for your use for the entire year.
Right.
So,
make smudge, like wrap them all together, make tons of smudges for yourself.
And now she's also, as Sothis is also like connected with Venus, and then we have Venus in rulership as well. It's like, get that mugwort, like, it's it's you have like all that like kind of behind it. And this is right when Venus ingresses into the second decan of Libra on August 16th. And so that's when we were talking about sardonyx before, sardonyx and vervain.
Yeah.
In the Hermetic tradition. And you were talking about elder and goldenrod.
Yeah. See, what I was thinking.
Some light.
So elder, I was thinking a lot of elderflower in this. Yeah. I mean, elderberry would be great too, but I was really focusing on elderflower. And I didn't, I guess I mentioned it. So yeah, I think infused in oil, that's a really great oil just to have around, just for any time of clarity and visions, or just anointing oneself with. In the water as well, like putting it in distilled water. It's ruled by, people say, Mercury, Saturn, Venus. It's another one of those, I mean, not elderflower, but elder is another one of those plants, if you take too much, it's an emetic.
Right.
Vervain's the
don't
same.
they say if you scrape it downwards, it's diarrhea, and if you scrape it upwards, it's for vomiting.
Oh,
Are
interesting.
you talking about for the bark?
Yeah, the bark. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, that's why Hyldemoer, the dryad grandmother, lives in elder to remind you to respect elder, or else you are going to
Oh, really?
go through some serious, intense purging. Or,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so if a lot of times, like when you're harvesting elder, you'll say, Eldermore, Lady Elder, please may I harvest of you, and when I am a tree, you may harvest of me.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting because in the Grimorium Verum, the two wands that you make are an elder wand and a hazel wand, and the hazel wand is to Klepoth, who is female throughout, going back through the couple ancestor grimoires, is never stated as male, right? And seems to be really attributed through that kind of like, let's look at stars and let's look at lapidaries, and then now let's look at like decans, to Libra and to that autumn equinox, and then Frimost is because you put the Klepoth sigil on the hazel wand on the hour and day of the sun, and then for the elder wand you put the Frimost sigil, and Frimost seems to be related to Aries and that spring equinox and Mars, right? And in Kimbanda, the spirit that Eshu that corresponds to Frimost is called Eshu Branchbreaker, and is like they call it like the strong spirit, and it's often involved in an aggressive love magic and coercion, and which coercion is even a word related to Hecate too, like in the PGM, like
interesting.
But just kind of that like exerting one's influence over something, and just like that ability to just like grab and be strong and like turn around and react, but it's this definite like male wand, female wand, but also like, I don't know, it's like this weird like astrological new year is also related to all this like the Annunciation and all this like rose symbology, and just has a lot of like the kind of symbology around Pampajira too, and then she's also like aggressive love magic, and she's actually like syncretized with Klepoth, and so there's this like mirroring between the two. But the elder is like a big part of it, and Jake Stratton mentions, again, we've talked about this like a couple times already, but people hollowing out elder because it's
the pith is so
and using
soft.
it as a tube to blow smoke through in ritual.
Yeah.
So when they talk about like Frimost's wand, maybe they were talking about just like this, making this kind of like pipe,
Right. Yeah. But then you definitely want to honor elder. I mean, any plant that you're harvesting, but yeah, especially elder.
Just the name.
Yeah, one's elder.
Yeah, one's elder, right? Yeah. It's a lot about respect and strength, and it's really interesting. And then it's in the Celtic tree alphabet. It's like Ruis, and has a lot to do with blood and warriors, and like the fallen dead and those kind of elders,
Yeah. Yeah, elder's amazing. And then goldenrod, which is blooming right now amongst us, all around us. It will be for probably another month.
Yeah.
Once Aster comes out too, they'll join kind of that purple-yellow force together.
I love that.
Yeah. But Solidago species, there's so many different species. You pretty much have to be an expert of goldenrod to tell goldenrod apart.
Oh, really?
In general. I mean, there's a few you can, but there's just...
Wow.
You have to, like, really get in there with, like, lenses and...
Wow, I did not realize that.
Yeah, but there's
because it just
quite
takes
a few species.
At least here, it's, like, everywhere.
Yeah.
Suddenly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the harbinger of fall in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like hot, the bugs are buzzing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's
But
goldenrod everywhere.
That, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a reminder to bring that warmth of the sun in with you into the coldness of winter too, because it's like that harbinger of the change, the transition time.
And it's like the last hay harvest, like wave usually too.
Right.
And the cows don't eat it, so it just like
Interesting.
will stay everywhere, all over the fields. It's one of the things they just don't touch. So like, it starts to be like cows just wandering around in all this goldenrod.
Yeah.
You know, like,
It's beautiful.
like it's over, right? Like we've eaten all the grass. Like it's coming slower. Now there's this stuff we don't eat. You know.
Yeah, what are we
And
gonna eat?
I read that it has more antioxidants than green tea.
Amazing. It makes an amazing tea. It was
It
used
is, yeah.
a lot for tea, like during the what was that in Boston? The Boston tea, whatever.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah.
But when they couldn't get tea, they would drink goldenrod.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
So it has
Yeah.
a
it's
kind
like
of
blue
similar
mountain
taste.
tea. They would use goldenrod and like equal parts goldenrod and mint.
It's delicious. It's really delicious.
Yeah, I harvested a bunch last year and I've been taking it at times, and I really just really like the taste of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Oh, and also it's associated with like causing allergies, but it's
But
because
it doesn't.
it's like it grows right around ragweed,
Yes.
and which
yeah.
has like a kind of like indistinct to the common eye flower, kind of green
Yes.
flower,
But you
whereas
really
the
see the
goldenrod
goldenrod.
is
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
it's
It
that
looks like
color.
it. What's in
oh,
your
my
nose?
allergies, goldenrod. Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
exactly.
actually goldenrod tea will help you with the allergies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Really amazing.
It's beautiful.
But yeah, it's the ragweed.
Imagine making like an oxymel with it. I mean,
Oh,
imagine
that
it'd be
would
really
be incredible.
that would be the thing to take. For
Really good.
At the end of this year. Yeah.
It also has an affinity for kidneys and bladder, as does Libra.
Yeah, it's usually given to Libra, which is interesting. Yeah, goldenrod, Libra, and Venus. So Mars is retrograde in affecting so it's what I was saying about those axes. Like if it's doing something with Libra, then it also affects Aries, and Mars is retrograde in Aquarius. But looking at people's charts, that's affecting all the houses that Mars rules. So Mars's retrograde is affecting your Aries house. So this goldenrod as medicine will help with Mars retrograde problems, you know?
That makes sense. Yeah, herbalists often say the person who can barely make it up the stairs and where's the chair? Because their kidneys are just so out of whack. Goldenrod is really their ally to bring their kidneys back into health. Yeah, and also herbalist Maria Trebin from Switzerland.
She makes the bitters.
Swedish bitters. Yeah, she's pretty amazing. She says kidneys help to process our emotions, and so having strong kidneys, we can process our emotions better, and goldenrod will help us work through that.
I love that part. I mean, there's so much of, obviously, I love your whole forecast, but that bringing the physical into the emotional and seeing that direct correlation is so important, especially when dealing with herbal medicine.
Right.
Because it's has that intuition. So.
Right. It's not allopathic medicine.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
treating the whole being.
So yeah, then we get finally we get August 18th, Mercury stations direct at 8 p.m. Everyone loves this.
Yeah.
And then and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know? So it's
4 times a year or something.
Yeah. So drink your peppermint tea.
Drink it.
Yeah.
Lemon verbena.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just celebrate.
Beautiful. Those are beautiful.
I like that it's a celebration. Celebrate your increased lucidity and ability to think.
But you can also use that oats fennel lavender tea that you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's
you could definitely bring that back.
I mean,
yeah.
I couldn't imagine a better iced tea for this time of year.
I know. So good. I've been obsessed with oats, calendula, red raspberry leaf, and Our Lady's mantle.
Oh, wow.
Really. It's almost chocolatey. The opposite of chocolate, but equals chocolate. I don't know what it is.
Well, it makes sense. I often when you drink tea, you really feel like it's an herb, and then when you drink coffee, you can really tell it's like a berry. you know? It's like fruit, you know, especially if you drink light roast. Oh yeah, I was thinking about like the how you mentioned the Boston Tea Party and like how people like come into the bar from the South and they're like, do you have any tea? And or iced tea, sweet tea or iced tea, and we're like, no, and they're like, no iced tea. Yeah. And we're like, no, I don't know, sorry. But then, like, we were thinking about it, we're like, oh, yeah, well, this is where the Boston Tea Party happened. Or, you know, like, or, like, at one, because we were, you know, colonized by English, we all drank tea, you know, but at one point, they were like, we were not drinking tea, you know? Like, so it's really interesting how the South retains tea, but the North doesn't continue with
like
its iced tea.
Of sugar, right?
Yeah,
or is that a stereotype? Yeah.
It's huge. I lived in Atlanta. It was like that for sure.
Kind of an aside, but anyway, so Sunday, August 19th, brings Jupiter's completed trine with Neptune. So this is more of like the mugwort we were talking about. This is kind of the ground zero of getting that Neptune, getting your dream work done or happening or whatever, doing your journeying and your dream work. And you mentioned agrimony, which I couldn't really like, I don't have a lot of awareness of agrimony. And even today I looked to try to widen my understanding and I could not find much.
This is actually a really new herb for me. I started the seed last year, and I think it must be a biennial or at least a tender perennial that maybe will last a few different seasons. But it's just gorgeous. It's related to cinquefoil, so it has a kind of jaggedy leaf, and then it comes up with a spire with this beautiful tiny little yellow flowers. And I'm really learning about this herb. It's not one of my allies yet, but I have been reading about it a little bit, and I'm going to be making a flower essence of it. But I was reading that it helps to aid perceiving visions, and I've been really excited about this new friend, kind of.
Perceiving visions. That's
so
really amazing.
I don't have actually a lot to share about agrimony at the moment because it's such a new ally.
But that kind of rolls right back into like, then you're talking about vervain again on August 25th, and we were talking about vervain as like a gaze wash. And
also sage.
Yeah, and the sage for clarity.
Though it's not clary sage, but...
Right.
Yeah.
But still, it's like...
Right.
Perfect for clearing space, and the mugwort for dreaming and for other world contact. So, so yeah, on August 25th, it brings us the closest we're going to get of that grand trine that we started with. Those 3 herbs that we originally went over were mullein, Solomon seal, and boneset. That could have been allies for this whole month, and now we're at the closest this grand trine will be. The trines are harmonized, so they're very musical. It's really like 3 notes. The music
of the sphere.
Yeah, the music of the spheres. 3 notes are struck, and they're just harmonized with each other, for better or worse, because this is like Saturn and Uranus and the sun's in there. But so it's good to start that relationship early on, and so we're like into this chord because it's kind of like it's striking a chord. But the chord could be a doom chord, you know what I mean? Yeah. It could be in a minor key, you know, like and kind of like with that Uranus in there, there's some overtones, you know, or like you're kind of getting this extra, like it's not like what do they say? The clearest tones are like actually like a clarinet, but that like we really like distorted guitars for like rock and roll and for like punk music. Because guitars, especially amplified and distorted guitars, are just loaded with overtones.
Oh, yeah.
There's just like all these other sounds that are reverberating off of it and making this dissonance and these interesting kind of like, it's more highly saturated and less singular. And so by this point, that Uranus is really probably bringing a lot of that in, and you're, and so it's really cool that you're talking about these nervines, motherwort and vervain. You know, like, and because I was mentioning in the forecast originally, this really looks like an opportunity for paranoia.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of extra, you know, like
Yeah.
it's high saturated.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with Venus and Libra squaring Pluto in
Yeah.
Capricorn. That
Yeah, and the Neptune thing happening.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pisces full moon is always a place, possible paranoia kind of place.
Yeah, and Libra and Pluto squaring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely motherwort and vervain as just like bringing you back to like going down some bad tunnels, like here, turn around for a minute. Maybe that's not the best one to go down.
Yeah.
And then of course wood betony,
Yeah.
which we've talked about in some past
But it's so
episodes.
good.
Yeah.
Mm.
I thought the vervain
Just-
there was really good as like one of the plague medicines, you
Right.
know, like banishing, like rue as well. Anything that's
Yeah.
if you're like getting chased down a tunnel, just you know,
Yeah.
try to clear it out. You know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah,
Talking about ingesting beets,
Yeah.
turnips, and buckwheat, barley, and potato.
Yeah, all great earth allies if you wanted to focus on the kind of earth aspect
on the
of
earth
the trine.
trine. Yeah,
Mhm.
eat some food.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah,
like
grounding.
really
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really
that's
grounding
like really
food. Like,
solid food.
And
Mhm.
cooking the food too,
Right.
like preparing the food.
Yeah.
Mhm. Working with the food.
Yeah, and then talking about
And then getting
kava,
far out with kava.
Yeah.
which
totally.
I thought was really interesting because Bonnie and I gave up alcohol for Lent this past year, and so a few times we just like turned to kava when we
Yeah.
needed to just like have a night or whatever, or get out of our sober states,
Mine,
you know.
Yeah.
And we watched that movie Hard to Be a God, like which, if you've seen it, it's completely insane. You know, like it's
It's like a Bruegel painting
yeah.
through a Russian lens.
Whoa.
I can't
Yeah, it's
describe it.
Yeah, it was a novel. It was a science fiction novel, I think from the 50s, that was adapted into a movie in '81 that starred Werner Herzog. But we didn't watch that one. We watched the 2013 version, which is actually better. And it doesn't appear to be from 2013. It looks like it's from the 70s.
Mhm.
Wow.
And it's like 3 hours long, and there's never not something disgusting happening on the screen, like for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It's,
Wow.
It's such an impressive movie, set wise, micro narrative, but it's gross nonstop. It's like, it's really, really impressive. But the idea is that there's scientists go to this other planet that
You never had a renaissance.
or had like an anti-Renaissance, right? Like they got to the Renaissance and there was a backlash and it fell back into the Dark Ages, and there was like a backlash against learning, and they just people just like had major disdain for literacy and for learning of any kind, and
Sounds
just
like the Cultural Revolution.
yeah.
Or just like hick life or whatever.
Yeah. But it was amazing to like be on this like this Lent, like a sober period, and then get down with kava and then just watch and it's all black
Right.
and white too.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
like it was definitely something I could like recommend. Like if you really want to get far out, don't drink alcohol for a couple months. Drink a bunch of kava and watch this movie in the middle of the winter, you know, and then like head down to like see a Latin mass, you know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
in the extraordinary form. So this is probably the most important thing of the month. After that is Mars stations direct on Monday, August 28th at 8 p.m. in Capricorn, and so this is a really big deal. We don't necessarily have like a ton of herbal information because it's so like a physical thing. Like this is like the moment where you're going to get your like swagger back, you know? Like this is when you like cuz it's in exaltation, and it's like at the highest degree of exaltation at like 28 degrees Capricorn. And so this is Mars really just being like, after this really dramatic, like weird it was a weird retrograde because it was in an air sign too, and it's in Aquarius. That's all like just the abstract, so it's like what was not working, what was like hitting a wall, what was like just not starting up, what was like you were working out and nothing's happening, is all kind of like in was conceptual. It's like all the conceptual things in life you're trying to get off the ground are just not flying, but they're disembodied in a way, and then suddenly he turns around in like on home ground, on home territory, and you're suddenly be like, wait a minute, it's like you're I don't know, it's like an action movie. You know what I mean? It's like that later scene in the action movie where you're like, uh-oh, here they go. Now it's like Rambo, or it's like...
It's like the Matrix, right?
Yeah, totally. It is like the Matrix,
I get this.
Yeah, you suddenly get it. Yeah. Totally. So yeah, that return to swagger on Mars's exaltation degree. And so, what did you have for that, Suzanne?
Well, when I was kind of bringing back to the warrior herbs of January, actually.
Right. Yeah.
That people, I was hoping people would choose a warrior herb for the whole year.
Right.
But yeah, motherwort definitely could, if one wasn't chosen, is an amazing warrior. Really puts up some boundaries. Those seed pods are, if you touch a motherwort plant this time of year, you're going to get scratched a little bit from the seed pods, just kind of setting boundaries. But also really knows what she wants, is going after it, can see the right pathways that are necessary to get there. If there's any unknowns, motherwort will like open doors, open books, like open windows, whatever.
So it's a good reorientation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool because it is attributed to Venus, and we still have Venus in rulership, and it's also attributed to Leo.
Yeah.
So it's like we get that, even though the sun at this point will be moved into Virgo, but we still have Mercury in Leo, and then it's also said to take. It's another one that takes melancholic vapors from the heart. So it's like a perfect kind of like, as Mars turns around and gets reorganized and is ready to manage tactically again, it's like, all right, like, lighten your heart, let it go. Let's like.
Right. It's Leonora's cardiaca, lion-hearted. So it literally is a lion-hearted herb.
Wow. Yeah, and it's interesting that it's like that, talking about that Cancer Capricorn polarity, and Mars is in it's like Mars is in exaltation in Capricorn, but in fall in Cancer. So, and that like, and it's like the warrior, because the warrior in his mother's house has a hard time,
Right.
but the warrior needs to be nurtured by the mother originally to grow up to be like a strong warrior or whatever. It needs that mother's milk. And so in like the Kiranides and in the Hermetic literature, like the sacred book of Hermes to Asclepius, we get, for the third decan of Capricorn, we get the Anankite stone, which I don't think people know what it is. It's we still don't know exactly what it is, but it says that it's with a strange milk, and it was often ground up and fed to suckling goats. So we get more of that, like goats and like Capricorn, Cancer axis, Moon's detriment. It's in the Kiranides. Some people like have put it mentioned it alongside white pearls, like perhaps like grinding up white pearls as like. So it's that like Mars, when Mars is wounded and needs to go to his mom's house, like working with the axis itself, like the warrior needs that mother's milk. So it's an interesting kind of the mother wart and Cancer, and like the kind of like making sure he's fed with that milk. And the same literature puts the third decan of Capricorn, gives it the chameleon thistle, which also we're not sure what it is. Also called the Mediterranean black thistle, perhaps. And so thistles are always Mars. And so that's his exaltation here. So it's interesting that you get like this milk and thistle, like white milk, black thistle kind of thing.
Right. Thistles are super protective plants, of course, because of the thorns, and a lot of times, like a magician would go to a stand of thistles and choose the tallest one as like a wand or like a walking stick.
Right.
And that would be very protecting.
There's incredible thistles growing back there.
Yeah.
And I've seen, I don't know if you, turning on the, from the head of tides, like onto 7, if you taking that way, but in that lot there's this huge thistle.
Yeah.
That, like, I could completely see being an incredible wand for any sort of operation.
Yeah.
That you may need it for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an incredible plant.
Mm-hmm.
Also called the devil's grain because a lot of time farmers would offer, like in early European times, would offer part of their field to the devil's acre.
Or
leave it fallow.
Hedgehog, warthog.
Yeah, exactly. And
giant slug.
Yeah. And then thistles love, fallow ground, love wastelands, and so that would be the grain of the devil.
Yeah, the devil's share.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, I like once. There's an event here called the Athens Day Parade, and I think it used to be a lot more wild than it is now. We
haven't been for many years. I've actually never been, but when was the last time you went? Was it like 8 years ago?
It was like 2007 or something. But so I decided to be the green man for the parade because a lot of people dressed up in costumes, and it's a lot of like back to the lander hippies that moved to Maine in this early 70s. And then a lot of the Hicks that live there, and everyone gets into it kind of simultaneously, but it creates this like kind of like dangerous like one day only dynamic where like it's like they're united through marijuana maybe, and like
it's just a parade.
Yeah, it's just a parade.
Everybody loves a parade.
It ends in kind of like a political parade and like a gravel pit, but everyone parades down the street, and so people are like burning rubber and like being sunburned like Hicks, but then there's like a lot of like hippie kind of like signs going on to like kind of leftist sentiments. So anyway, we went and I like decided to be the green man, and I just took a pair of like long john outfits and I just spray adhesive all over them, and then I just took a bunch of burdock and all kinds of like ferns, and I just stuck them all over it, and it came out to be like pretty impressive. And I took some sort of hat or helmet, did the same thing to it, and my staff was a big giant thistle, that I'd like fastened with wire or something on top of like an even larger staff, so it was really really tall. And I was just like, hell yeah, like, really good green man costume. But then when I got there, I didn't realize that everyone was just gonna think of me as like a weed man, and just like they were like, smoke him up, it's the weed man. And they were all trying to light me on fire. And so there's all these sunburned Hicks like trying to smoke me, and I had that thistle, and I would just like whap them in their bare chests, like their sunburned chests. Oh my God. And they normally would pound me, but like it's just something they were just like, ah, like I could hear them scream and just like flee instead. So.
It's amazing because Motherwort teaches us to embody courage, and it gives you strength in the heart. So that's like where like Motherwort could have been helpful.
Yeah, totally.
But also has like sharp boundaries.
Yeah, definitely.
Like
get away.
Yeah. Like you have gone too far.
Yeah, boom. Yeah, no, it was really great because
Motherwort's amazing.
I could hit them from like 15 feet away or something.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a perfect staff for that.
I should have like been able to hand them Motherwort like at the same time, like hurt with one hand, heal with the other.
Yeah, it tastes this extreme bitter.
Yeah. Yeah, pour it in there like Coors Light or whatever.
Twisted
Here,
tea.
fill your cooler with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of the month.
Exactly. We're done.
Is there anything else that either of you feel the need to express before we end this recording?
I think I'm expressed.
Yeah.
This was
September.
Hopefully we can meet again and do this.
Yeah, I'm excited about September.
Yeah.
I guess I do want to say
I love September. The September issue, give me a break.
Oh yeah,
I'm not even buying it, but I love the idea of it.
Yeah, totally. No, next month should totally be called the September issue.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll see you then.
Yeah.
Yeah, see you.
Thank you.